Minister, we are all well aware that the Brexit result sent shockwaves across the whole of Europe. It has very serious ramifications for the future of the EU and indeed, of course, for our own island of Ireland. We all agree that hard borders should not be reintroduced between North and South, and also that the common travel area should remain. There has been positive soundings about these, but mixed messages about how the special relationship between Ireland and Britain will be handled. It is most unfortunate that the Northern Ireland Minister was excluded from a recent Cabinet committee that was set up in London on Brexit. Now, what the Tory government does is outside our control, but how they treat Northern Ireland is an indication of how they are going to treat the Republic of Ireland under a special treatment. It doesn't give much cause for hope. But what I want to focus on is what the Irish government should be doing and need to be doing, because this is having a detrimental effect on businesses now. It is going to have a detrimental effect in the medium and on the long term to businesses right across this island. Preparations should be started now to allow companies to be shielded and to give them comfort during what is going to be a very uncertain 2 years while negotiations take place. And what needs to happen now, companies who are reliant on exports are given the necessary supports to give them the confidence to ride the storm of this uncertainty over the next 2 years. Because good businesses have been built up over the last number of decades and who, through no fault of their own, are facing hugely uncertain times. And while there has been a lot of soundings about being prepared, very little action has been taken or shown that we are actually prepared. We have already seen the impact on businesses here from the dramatic drop of sterling. Some companies have already closed and others are at the edge of the cliff, working at a loss, hoping that sterling will rise again. And I spoke to a business in my own region who's in the prepared consumer food sector, working on a net margin of 4 to 5%. They are now suffering a loss of anything between 20 and 25%. Now, that's not sustainable, Minister. And we know that the small and medium-sized sector employs over 780,000 people, particularly in rural Ireland, where the backbone of the employment in our regions. IBEC have called for a currency crisis fund to be set up, but it appears their requests have fallen on deaf ears. 42% of our tourism market comes from the UK, and the impact on sterling will reduce this dramatically, some predicting up as far as 10%. Minister, last week's budget underscored the seriousness of Brexit and the threat it poses to Ireland. It was just a tokenism to the greatest threat that faces the Irish economy for many decades. And I am very worried about the business who are dependent on exports. Can I ask the Minister, will you confirm that the Government will make a fund available to help shield Irish companies from Brexit and will help them work through the uncertainties over the next 2 years till we all eventually know what the real outcome of Brexit will be?
Thank you very much, Minister Varadkar.
Thanks very much. I think it's important to say that the Government recognises the enormous challenges that face our country as a consequence of Britain's decision to leave the European Union. Challenges for farmers and exporters as a result of currency changes, which the Deputy has mentioned, challenges for the tourism industry, which is so dependent on tourism from the United Kingdom, challenges for the service industry and, of course, for individuals. And as the Deputy says, what the British Government decides to do is a matter for them, but we can control what we do and we can prepare. The Government's Committee on Brexit, our subcommittee on Brexit, met this week, and I'm a member of that committee, and we went through the number of very important actions that have been taken to date. The fact, for example, that there is additional funding in the budget for additional staff in IDA and EI to make sure that our message is heard overseas. We decided, notwithstanding the performance of tourism, to keep the VAT rate at 9% for tourism and hospitality, recognising the risk that there may be a fall in tourists coming in from the United Kingdom. We're rolling out a new low-interest loan scheme to farmers, valued at €150 million, and that's to help with cash flow, and also new business support schemes related to the risk sharing under this development. In addition, the Deputy may be aware that Minister Doyle arranged for a payment of just under €1.57 million to one of the mushroom producer organisations under an EU scheme for that particular industry. So we are acting as things stand to deal with the immediate consequences caused by the uncertainty of the vote and the fall in the value of sterling. But we're also planning ahead, and among the things that are going to happen, for example, is a visit by the Taoiseach to Northern Ireland on the 3rd of November, when he's going to visit all the party leaders up there and meet some of the chambers of commerce and speak with them. We're also going to establish an All-Ireland Civic Forum to discuss the consequences of Brexit, and that will be of particular relevance to border communities who are most at risk from Brexit. And the next NMSC summit will occur on the 18th of November in Armagh, which again will give us an opportunity to discuss the consequences of Brexit with the ministers from the north and to work out how we can work together to meet those challenges head-on.
Thank you very much. Deputy Troy.
Thank you, Concordia. Well, Minister, we were told that the budget was going to be Brexit-proofed, and that simply is not the case. Over the last number of weeks and months, I've spoken with businesses in my own region, and it's not a case of when the Taoiseach uses an example. I met a man who was having a pint last night. I spoke with real businesses who are creating real jobs. One 100, another 170, another 500, and every one of them are dependent on exports for their businesses. And they have a real fear, Minister, in relation to the outcome of Brexit. A real and genuine fear. Now our region has already suffered job losses in the last number of months. We don't want any more. You talk about the 50 staff that has been recruited for Enterprise Ireland and IDA. Most of those staff have been recruited before Brexit ever happened. You talk about the retention of the 5% VAT. That has been in place for many, many years, Minister, and I acknowledge it was your government that put it in place, and it was a welcome boost to the industry at the time. But like that too, speak to anybody that's working in the tourist industry, and they have real concerns about Brexit here and now.
Thank you, Deputy.
Minister, I reiterate the question I asked at the very beginning, and perhaps you might answer it this time. Can you confirm if the government will make a fund available to help Irish companies who are dependent on exports, who are dependent and reliant on currency fluctuations, work through the uncertainties of the next 2 years, so that hopefully they will be able to ride out these uncertainties and will be in a stronger position after the 2 years' deliberations?
Minister for Edgar.
I can't give the Deputy any specific commitments today. I'm not in a position to make policy decisions on the hoof, but as I would say to him, there are some funds already available. I mentioned the payment that's been made to one of the producers in the mushroom industry already. Also the fact that there is a low-interest loan scheme being put in place for farmers to the value of €150 million, and that was in the budget. Falls in the value of sterling have happened before. They can happen independently of any concerns or decisions around Brexit. They do work both ways. For some companies it can be devastating, can move them from a position of profit to a position of loss. For others it can actually be a benefit. If they're importing from the UK, it reduces their costs. And the real solution, I know this isn't possible for every industry, but the real solution for most industries is to diversify and not to be dependent just on one market. I appreciate for some industries that may not be possible, but for others it is. I'll just leave the Deputy one final thought. 4 times in our history, on 4 occasions, Ireland went down a different road to the United Kingdom. In 21 we became independent and there were challenges with that. In 48 we left the Commonwealth and became a republic, and there were challenges associated with that. In 79 we broke the link with sterling and all of the challenges that came with that. And in 2002 we decided to become a member of the euro without Britain, and of course there were challenges related to that. But on every single occasion we rose to those challenges, and Ireland emerged stronger and more prosperous as a result of that. And we're going to make sure that that's the case this time too.